Oh, now we are recording and we missed the coffee break. Okay, markup languages, we have typographic markup. We all know how it works and we're using it. We learn it on school. With TI, we have something different. We have, oh, this was too many. Never do a coffee break when you're presenting. Okay. We are using typographic tokens, brackets and dots, subdots and things like that. Today we are talking about semantic markup. You can express the same situation as above in the first line. We have zil, and then we have a gap, and we assume that the unit of the gap is letters, and we have a quantity of 3. And we have a high certainty that is correct. So here we can express in this, call it, we call it semantic markup. We can express much more. If we make a book or a homepage or a website from it, we can transfer it. Maybe in the first solution, we know all from the semantic markup, but we are able to express on a much higher level the textual phenomenon. It's really a very close reading. And you can do more. For the second case, we can supply letters that are lost with a very high certainty. And we can also say who's responsible for it. In this case, Thomas Kollatz. So we have typographic markup and we have semantic markup, and semantic markup uses semantic tags, gap, and something that's applied. And these constructions in these angle brackets are called tags. And with tags, we mark up content. So what is XML? ML always stands for markup languages. We have lots of markup languages out there. XML, the X stands for extensible markup language. You really can develop your own semantic, which should fit to your specific problem. And it's semantic instead of typography. XML is more interested in the meaning of data than its presentation. This quote is taken from the gentle introduction to XML, which is not so short as my talk today, but really gentle, and it's a recommendation. If you ever think of using XML, start with this, and you see that it's a link, start with this text. XML is also device independent and system independent. If you want, I would not recommend it, but you can write XML in your word processing in Microsoft Word. But you can, you don't need a special device and you don't need a special system. It works on Mac, PC, and Linux. And XML is very common also outside humanities as an interchange and communication format. The text we encode in a way we have just seen are readable for human beings and also for machines. It's machine readable. It serves both ends. Generalizing, we define markup or synonymity encode, very difficult to pronounce. We define markup or encoding as any means of making explicit an interpretation of a text. That's what it's all about. And that's our business. And that's why it's worth while to think about maybe to use it a little more in humanities. XML structures, there are few rules. I made an example. I invented it. There's a text, and in the text is a quote, to be or not to be, and then there is a statement. To be or not to be is one of the best known name Shakespeare quotations. Okay, we all know that. XML uses descriptive markup. A textual unit, also known as an element, is tagged by inserting a start tag. This is what we have here, a start tag, quote, at the beginning of the element, and an end tag at the end of the unit. And the end tag has the same name than the start tag, but here we have a slash. So by using this strategy, we mark a content semantically as a quote, here as a name, and the whole thing is text. So you elements, text can be nested. Quote, name is part of text. XML documents must be well-formed. And the well-formed is the nesting characters, the nesting structure, the nested structure. Who's afraid of angle brackets? So we already learned we have a tag, start tag marks the beginning of an end. Angle bracket slash and tag name is an end tag and marks the end of an element. A text unit with tagged content, tag, content, tag. This is a unit. We also have so-called empty tags, which we use for line begins. A line begins doesn't has any content. It's just a marker, a milestone, an element with no content. And we can introduce attributes in our text. So for a line begins, when a line begins, we can, maybe it makes sense to use an attribute which counts the lines. So here we can do line begins, attribute counter, and we set it on 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. So we are free to use it if we are in the world of XML. Any questions so far? No. Then next slide. What does well-formed mean? A well-formed XML obeys the following simple rules, and they are really simple. There's a single element enclosing the whole document. It was in our example text. This is known as a root element. All elements are part of this root. Each element is complementary contained by the root element or by an element that is so contained. Elements do not partially overlap one another. This is complicated, and some people hate XML just for this reason. I think Daniel is one of the XML haters because he's dealing with text where you have to deal with the problem overlap. I actually had never this problem. That's why I love XML and later TI. But this is the most serious rule. Elements do not partially overlap one another. And I will show you in an XML editor in a few minutes what an overlap means. And a tag explicitly marks the start and end of each element. And you can all read about it in the gentle introduction to XML. Okay, now I give you an example and we'll switch to the Oxygen XML editor. Normally, I don't recommend a certain product, but in the case of XML, and especially if you're working with Hebrew text, the Oxygen XML editor is the only XML editor that I know of that really works good with right-to-left languages. So that's why this is really a recommendation. And the people who are developing Oxygen are really nice. They like our very small peer group. There's not much money in humanists in our kind of work. The most money an XML editor company makes is in bank and business. But Oxygen has a warm heart towards our little business, humanist text. Okay, now I will switch, and I hope it works, to Oxygen, and I will open a new document, and it is a simple XML document, and I don't know if I choose the good one. we only have a starting tag XML, and we say it's encoded UTF-8 because maybe we want to use Hebrew, and in all our daily computing, we are always currently on UTF-8. So it's just a declaration. And now what will I do today? I will write a book. A book has a chapter, and you see if I open with if I create a start tag, Oxygen automatically delivers an end tag. And my book has several chapters. And each of these chapters has a header. And the content is preface. And now here I start with my biography, my memoirs, so whatever. Header, chapter 1. So really easy. And here you have the root is book. And here you have chapter. And maybe we introduce a number and 1. This is chapter, oh, it's a preface, it's chapter 0.
Thomas, I think you didn't say what P is, and you introduce it.
What introduced I? P is a paragraph. Oh yeah, that I'm really a TI guy. So for if I'm inventing my own XML, I would probably name it paragraph. That's what I'm doing here. I'm not in the world of TI, I'm in the world of XML, and I'm inventing my own semantical structure. And maybe in chapter 1, I start with a motto, aller Anfang ist schwer, all beginning is difficult. I don't know if it's an expression in English, so it's a motto, and then the next paragraph. So it's semantical, and it helps me to structure my text. And I can do it with a manuscript. I can in the beginning I can make a metadata where I define the purpose of my work. Purpose. So whatever you want. This is if you do your own TI, your own XML for your own project, which you have to explain to others. It is a very obvious structure, but if you're doing things like that, you have to know what metadata is in your case. You have to write your own guidelines. This is, but it's not easy. It's not difficult. It's actually rather easy. The purpose is, I think, okay. That was the very first example. I will not save it. I will go back to my presentation. Are there any questions? Was it clear so far? I hope so.
Perfectly clear.
Perfectly clear. So I go on to what is TI XML? TI is XML. It has the same rules. Root tag, no overlap. Oh, I wanted to show you what overlap is. Overlap is if I put the end of motto here. And now you will see that it's red because it's not wallet. The element paragraph must be terminated by the matching end paragraph. And if I put it back, I'm green again. And if you work with TI and with XML, this green square will make you very, very happy. It's always good if you know that you have a valid document. If you are a primitive person like me who likes green and red. So, what is TI XML? TI is, first of all, the TI Encoding Initiative. It's a group of persons dealing with TI. TI Encoding Initiative is a consortium which collectively develops and maintains a standard for the representation of text in digital form. Its chief deliverable is a set of guidelines which specify encoding methods for machine-readable text, and we are doing it since 1994. And it's open for, actually for all disciplines, humanities, social science, linguistics, Jewish studies, whatever. And it's very important that the TI delivers guidelines. If you rethink my very stupid example, which I just met, I invented all these elements, all this text. TI delivers guidelines. So if I'm using TI, I can rely and refer to their guidelines. I don't have to write it down because it's already written in the TI guidelines. This is very, very important. And writing guidelines takes a lot of time. Documenting your own projects takes a lot of time. TI does it for you. And who is TI? TI are not computer nerds. TI are people involved in developing TI are humanists. We have specialists for drama, for poetry, for religious text, for epigraphy. They are all working on these guidelines to find a markup language for representing the structural, renditional, and conceptual features of text. And this is really something. It's very, very useful. The focus, though not exclusively, on the encoding of documents in the humanities and social science, and in particular on the representation of primary source materials for research and analysis. These guidelines are expressed as a modular, extensible XML schema, accompanied by detailed documentation, and are published on an open source license. Even that, open source. What do you want more? And this is the table of context. And now I will switch to a bigger screen. And you see all the elements of the TI. I think we have about 600, almost 600 elements that we can use are described in an appendix. More important, if you want to start with TI, is is a text body. We have 23 chapters. Some of them are very specific on verse. If you work with poetry, you should definitely read the chapter on verse. If you work with drama, performance texts, read chapter 7. Always read the chapter on the TI header. This is the place where TI deals with metadata. What do you need? What do people need to understand your documents? And very, very interesting is also names, dates, people, and places. In most of my text, I always have a name, a date, people, and places, and I want to relate them, and I want to relate to them, and I want to set them in, put them in certain relations and express certain relations. Somebody is the mother of somebody else, and in this chapter you find means. And you learn how to do that. And DI is not, it's not a guideline which only allows one way. You really have to choose what is good for your project, and it helps you structure your own research. And let's have a short look in one of these huge chapters, the TI header. And what I like very much in the TI, that it always gives examples. And let's jump to minimal and recommended headers for the TI header, the metadata section. And here you see a very short one. We have title, Thomas Paine, Common Sense, a machine readable transcript. Okay. And we see who compiled it. and who is a distributor, the Oxford Text Encoding, and we have a very short bibliographical notice. It's a very small, minimal level on encoding all information of the text you are editing. There is also a much longer TI header possible, which makes more sense. Here you have a title statement with the title of the work, the author of the work, and who's responsible for it, who's done the work. You can date the edition. You can give an address if the internet has fallen down and you want nevertheless this text, and you can make some remarks on your encoding, things you keep in mind, things you encode and things you don't decode, how you normalize your text. So you can do all the things we normally do in editions, and you can express it in a described form. All this correction, editorial declarations, they all have their own chapter and description and documentation in the guidelines. And this is really very, very important. You can relate to the TI guidelines. You don't have to invent everything yourself because it's already there. You only have to adapt it to your own project. This is the huge advantage of the TI, not only in my opinion. And now I will give you a very, and sorry, Daniel, a very stupid example, just how to encode a letter. And I wanted, dear Daniel, we will encode a very short, very stupid letter. Dear Daniel, I'm looking forward to see you today. Best wishes, Thomas. We have a date, we have a place, maybe we have two places because Daniel is also living somewhere. Maybe we know it as editors. We have a statement, we have a greeting, we have an informal best wishes, and we have two names, two persons, and a date. So let's copy it and start with our first TI document. I switch back to Oxygen. And Oxygen offers me a lot of TI flavors. I take all in it, and this is my. It offers the basic structure: title, publication statement, source text. This every TI document must have this information. But now I will start here with my letter, and I have it in my clipper. Now it's getting red because I will start with a division, and TI gives me an explanation what the tag means. I will start with the text division, and I will give it an attribute letter because I'm dealing with a letter. Okay, and in this letter, now I copy my text here. In this now it's everything red because it's not valid. TI, it's valid if it's XML, but TI has a own schema. TI has rules, and TI says in a division you always need an arbitrary block, an anchor, something. You can't just put a division somewhere. You have to explain yourself. And let's start with, this is the opener. And I can choose from the elements. Here all the elements in my very comfortable editor. I choose the opener. And if there's an opener, maybe there's also a closer. Go to the element and look for. I do it in a minute because it wasn't there. Okay. Then we have here's the text. and it's a P, it's a paragraph. And now we have why couldn't I find? Why couldn't I see it closer? I tried. Maybe I just don't see it. Okay, I didn't know. I don't know why it wasn't in the closer. Maybe I haven't seen it. No, I have a letter, and TI offers me a typical structure for a letter. A letter always has a closer, opener, it always has a opener, it always has a closer, and it always has something in the middle, which I can call paragraph. The opener groups together dateline, byline, salutation, and similar phrases appearing as a preliminary group at the start of a division. It's also true for a charter. You can use it for all kind of documents. So this is, as I just learned, a dateline. Voila. And in the dateline, I have a place name. And you see, I'm still green. Everything is okay. And I have a date. And maybe it makes sense. Here, lots of attributes are offered. And one is when, supplies the value of the date or time in a standard form. And the standard form is an ISO norm 2023, 03, and 25. Easy. What more? Dear Daniel is a salutation. It's saluted. And Daniel is a name. And here we also have a salute, and we have also a name. So it's really, if you're used to it and if you've done it several times, you see I'm doing it not with this menu. I know what is expected because I'm doing it every day. So it's not very difficult, and you can structure it a little bit. You can format it, and now you see, okay, this is my opener session, this is my closer section, and TI XML offers you means to really search in your highly structured document for certain elements. So if I'm only interested in the name, I can see, oh, there are two names in it, Daniel and Thomas. But maybe I want to do more. And add a chorus desk section. And because we don't have so much time, and it should be a short introduction, I prepared something like a chef in the kitchen. We in the letter only Thomas and Daniel are mentioned. TI offers something that is very useful for correspondence. It offers a course description. This is a very formal description, and we have in this course description we have two actions: one sent action and one received action. And in this section we have now the full forms of the names. We have Thomas Kollatz, and we even define who is this Thomas Kollatz. This is a Thomas Kollatz who has a German National Library account, blah, blah, blah. And he lives in Krefeld. And Krefeld has a special, there are dozens of Krefelds out there in the world. This geonames ID specifies the Krefeld I'm talking about. And we have a date of this send action. And the same is possible for the receiver, which is Daniel, who's waiting for my letter, and he lives somewhere around Paris. And also here we can specify a search only for the receivers. And this was a very primitive example. Next to it, you have a whole document for our Buber correspondences, where we offer a lot of information, how many sheets, where you can find in the National Library of Israel, if it's handwritten or typed, how many hands were used, Martin Buber and sometimes the secretary. Then we have the correspondence section, and we have an abstract, Martin Buber invites Theodor Herzl. We have a list of organizations mentioned. It's all in the abstract section. And then we relate people. This person invites this person, and they have some activities. And here comes the letter. So it's really, you can really make it fit for your project. Back to, this I just showed you. These are formal informations, and what you can do with it is described in the correspondence description section of the TI. Now I have a different example of what 180. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer al Shlosha devarim ha'olam omet al hadin va'al ha'emet va'al ha'shalom shenamar emet u'mishpat shalom shiftu b'sha'archem. So it's also possible to express Mishnah Talmudic dialogue or statement in TI. And maybe I just show you the result. I plan to do it in the Oxygen, but I prepared it already. And I think it's more interesting to show you that you can do it very differently, and it's depending on your decision and your concept. The research questions you are interested in. So I will first show you a first solution and then a second solution, and we can maybe later talk about how nice it is that you don't, it's not a guideline in a very strict sentence. This is the text session, and if you work with Hebrew, it's not very comfortable, but there is a solution. Very important is, and I say it because if you do it and don't know it, I'm telling it you, very important is if you work with Hebrew, always define the default attribute XML language and set it on Hebrew. If you do it, your text will always be right to left. If you don't do it, it will be a mess. And for Hebrew texts, you have, it's very comfortable to work with the author mode in Oxygen. And if you click on it, you get your text in a readable form. And if you click on, if you want to see the attributes you're using, you can just activate them. And then you see how, what did I do? I was interested in the first name, Rabban Shimon, and I declared Gamliel also a first name. And it would be also possible to go on this link name thing. Would be possible to insert now a tag for this linkage. I started a quote because it's something Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said. It's from here to here. And here comes the first part of the quote. And I declared that what he's saying is a list with 3 items. And then comes again a quote, but it's a quote from a source, and I think it's Zacharia 8. And I just mentioned the source of the quote as an attribute, and I can make it much more sophisticated. But important is that you can work here with you can use your mouse here, and can, for instance, say that Shlosha is a number, and then you can say that the value of the n attribute is 3. Doesn't make much sense, and I made a mistake. Oh, you don't like this tag here. To remove it. Yeah, screen again. Okay, this is one way to express this very well-known piece of Birkavot. But I also thought about maybe it makes more sense to do it as an act of speech. Contains an individual speech in a performance text or a passage presented as such in a prose or first text. So maybe it makes sense, at least for me, it makes sense to understand Birkavot as a collection of performance acts as speech. So then they have a speaker, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and something the speaker said. And here I'm using the TI drama module, which is mentioned in the header and where I can relate on. And it looks like this. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, al shlosha devarim omed al rum. So it's a completely different approach, but it's 100% TI. Everybody still on board? I have one more example. Is it? Yeah, you're still. I'm going on. Yeah.
Okay, yes, please do.
Yes. Okay, I have one example from Epidat. It's a kina. We found it on a like we have many in the 17th and 18th century. It's from Hamburg, and it's on it's a lament. Kina leben yakir, a lament for my dear son, for you one weeps the tender child. How great is your kindness! On a bitter day, the lily withered. Yehuda Löb, to ashes you return, son of the master, Yitzchak Reinbach. And if you look at the text, you see, you actually see the rhyme. Ach, 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 ach. And if you look closer, you will also recognize an acrostic, left, lieb. And if you take a third look, you will probably, after 10 minutes, recognize the acronym, Lamed, Yud, Bet. So it's really highly structured, it's a poetic structure, and for sure, it's possible to express it in TI. And again, I made 2 different examples, approaches. First, a very simple one. Where I, again, very important, XML lang hi, otherwise it will not look so nice. We have a header, we have a line group. LG stands for line group. I don't have to invent it. TI offers it to me. And I can, I decided to declare the rhyme. It's A, 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 A. It's all on the same syllable. Would also be if I would be able to do it, because I'm not. It is also possible to say something on the rhymes on the meter. Yeah, meter structure. So if you're very good in things like that, I'm not a very musical person, so I never will be able to understand if it's going up or down. But if you are able, you can express it in a form, maybe like this. No, not like this. Like this. Anyhow, it's you're free to do it whatever you like. And then we have lines in this line group. This is a very simple representation of this line group. Maybe it's nice to show you that there is also the possibility to relate to the very nice facsimile of this thing. And I just inserted the link. And if I switch to the author mode, now I have this very nice kina, where we see that it's not so difficult because the graver marked the acronym Lamed Yud-Bet and the acrostic Lamed Yud-Bet. He's really doing a very good job. And here we have our kina. And if we highlight the text, you see what we did. Last example, it's a little bit more complicated. And here you see that you will not be very happy with the text mode. Because if you try to express the acrost Lamed Yud-Bet, you don't see, it's really difficult to read your text. No problem in the author mode, but well in the text mode. And that's why we recommend the Oxygen editor. And our markup makes sense, because if you only search for segmentation, any segmentation in the text, we get our acrostic as a result, as a search result. And we can also do it on all texts we have. We can really search 40,000 texts for acrostics and get them by one very simple construct. Back to my presentation. Almost last step, you're not alone. TI is a very helpful community. There's a list. There are many online and also in-person possibilities to learn it. Very good courses. There are special interest groups, and TI by example is maybe the best course there is online. Special interest group is, because you all know what a mailing list is, there is a special interest group for correspondence, and there are conveners, and they have a mailing list, they have a wiki. And for us working on Buber, it was very important to, because they are all dealing with same material than we. They are dealing with correspondence, letter, postcards, all kind of things people send around. And there is a very good discussion about manuscripts. If you in the chapter on manuscripts in the TI guidelines and in the special interest group, you really have all the know-how of the last 250 years done in cardiology and paleography. It's all expressed in TI code. Very useful, and it's a very good introduction in dealing with manuscripts also. There's also TI for linguists. If you're more interested in the semantics and syntax of a text, then this is a place to be for you. And last slide is why, open for discussion. And very last slide is some more, the link to the guidelines. Lou Bernard is one of the two. He was really from 1994. He's with the TI, with the consortium since 1994. There is an introduction in Hebrew by my dear colleagues Sina Rizak and Yael Netzer. It's online. And I did something with my colleague Max Gründgens on a special TI format for epigraphic documents. And it's also an online course. It was an EAJS Winter School. And now I'm on my last slide and open for your questions. And I hope you will love TI and not hate it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Thomas, for your presentation. And now we open floor for questions or comments or criticism. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily. And questions in the comments. First of all, please raise your virtual hand if you want to ask a question or comment. I see no hand up. Oh yeah, actually, Daniel.
Many thanks, Thomas. You're a great teacher. I have to say, it's a fantastic experience. Could you please put the link to your presentation into the chat? So I've tweeted about our event, and I could link the presentation.
I think I did it. At least I blended. But maybe I forgot it. Here it is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a second. So I'll give others the possibility to ask a question. Just a second.
But you hate TI, so maybe it's interesting to discuss a little bit about about
okay,
although it is problematic, but I think we have different positions why it could be problematic. But maybe there are questions from because it was really for absolutely beginners. So let's
I'll be silent and let people who really were exposed to TI for the first time here ask questions.
There's a question from Hilal
Gershuni, please.
Yes, thank you. I have to apologize because there was a confusion, so I wasn't in the first half an hour. So maybe you answered this question, but it relates to maybe to the criticism you mentioned. It seems that there could be a lot of work for each document to do this through the TI, and I'm not sure that we always get the results that it worth all the trouble to take document after document with this precision. Maybe it's not the precision because there can be different standards even in this TI. So the question is, maybe it's not for everyone to use.
Yeah, that you really should know why you want to use it. You need a concept. The problem with TI is that many funding agencies really force people to use TI. And I consider this is a really bad development, and it's not good for the TI, because if people are forced into something, they will not like it. But it's not our problem. And when I started with TI, it was an absolutely no-go. Nobody did it. So I never had the problem that I feel the pressure like as a German funding agency, the DFG is really, you can't edit without TI, and I think it's possible. For I don't know, you can apply TI in a very free way, and what we did, for instance, with our Buber project, we made a test edition because we had them, the 50 letters from Theodor Herzl to Martin Buber and vice versa. So we just exercised it, and the people I and my colleague from my department were the only one who had ever experience with TI. And after 4-5 weeks, my colleagues from Jewish studies and German studies and Zionist history from history department were really able to discuss with us which encoding is most suited to our research questions. So what we did, we started with TI all, and now we are reducing it to the things we really need. And we skipped all the other possible stuff. And that's what never work with TI all. Choose what you need for your project. If you have a poetry project, you only need 3 or 4 texts. So, and TI offers also a solution. It's called One Document Does It All, where you can make your own TI-based schema, and this is really, really great. You can get rid of all the stuff you will never need. I never need all the linguistic tagging, but it's in there. So, and if what I discussed with Daniel, because I'm very impressed about eScriptorium, it would be very nice to put a text, a scan through eScriptorium, get a basic, all the lines, a basic transcription. I don't have to write it. So let's transfer this in a basic TI, and maybe then use some named entity recognition. So you can use all these things. You don't have to do it by hand, as I just do it. If there are tools that are working, use them. But TI, the great advantage of TI is that it has guidelines and it can be understood. And our epigraphical project at Steinem Institute was used by many projects who just read the guidelines of the TI and were able to extract the data they wanted. This is the communication, the exchange format. This is really a huge advantage. Was it an answer on your question? Because I talked a lot, very long. Very sorry for it. But now there are much more hands open. But was it good, or did you mean something completely different?
No, okay. I have further questions, but I will.
Okay.
Let the other.
So let's return if Phil wants to catch up on this. But first, I would like to have a question from Francois and then Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm just typing. I add a link to the chat, which is the one, my one box ticking exercise in using TI, mm-hmm. Namely tagging tributes which we digitized and transcribed from a collection which is held at UCL, tributes to Moses Montefiore. You have the link in the chat. So one could obviously go into a full TI editing mode with each tribute, which would be a project, I mean, which would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds probably, I mean, or tens of thousands of pounds. But what we did was only use the very basic markers from the TI Text Encoding Initiative to allow for the unequivocal marking of elements in each tribute. So author, place, date, etc. And this is all what is available, so to speak, in the background of each document. Yeah. which theoretically makes it possible to retrieve it by entering, for example, tribute Montefiore Odessa.
Yeah.
So a Google search will then actually be able, because we did TEI with this document, to identify this project. This individual, it will be able theoretically to lift this item from the web.
Yeah.
So this is at the very, very surface of TEI. I mean, you can't do less TEI, I would argue.
But this is a very good concept, because it did precisely what you wanted to do it, and it's perfectly okay to do to use a very small amount of TI.
Exactly. So I think it would be helpful, Thomas, if you could stress more this standardizing dimension of TEI, so that actually digitized items, and we have obviously by now billions of these items, will, because obviously we drown in an ocean of digitized elements, facts, dates, details. So if you take the task of a digitization effort seriously to make things retrievable, then TEI is actually the way to go.
Yeah.
But not full editing, the full editing mode, which may be relevant for in-depth analysis of certain text, for example, epigraphic text, but which allows you to identify materials floating around in the unlimited ocean of digitized material.
Yeah, actually, we have what we are missing in Jewish studies is something like what they have. The Haiti Trust has it for English literature. The Oxford Text Archive has it for it's a similar approach, and we have it in Germany, the German Text Archive, where we have a repository where we can collect TI encoded texts, and I think we're missing it. If we have it a little bit better connected, we would be able to really search and ask research questions on a much huger amount. I did it once because it was really fun. I looked up all the Hebrew texts in the German Text Archive, which is possible. They have an API, they have an interface. You can do it from your. You can do it if you know how to do it. And I also extracted all the poems in texts, not text of literature, but guidelines, handbooks, and I found very funny poems. And it's so easy because you only have to search for a line group. And if you're searching for Hebrew, you have to search for the XML length attribute, which is with a value he. It's really easy, and people, you need a container, a repository, a place where we can store our data. We all can keep our little nice home pages, but we need something like a Hebrew text archive, and we don't have it, and this is a pity.
Daniel?
Just to dissipate maybe the wrong impression, I'm obviously very much in favor of TI. I just think it has its limitations. And one extremely important thing is what was just mentioned by Francois, the interoperability. And it's not only TI that is asked for by most research bodies, but it's these FAIR principles. I just put the link in there. So if we produce data all the time, all the different projects, and everybody uses his or her own guidelines and his or her own thing, this will just be noise. This will be completely useless.
And it's so boring.
The only way is really to go TI for saving or creating data currently. Maybe there will be a better solution in 5 years, but currently there's no way around TI. And any project that uses digital means and produces data and doesn't produce them in TI is going down into the desert. It will be forgotten. It will be completely useless. Now, you
Fully agree.
Yeah, TI is a rabbit hole. I mean, you can, as Hillel said, I mean, if you want to annotate everything on a single letter, like you said, you can spend a year because you can annotate every single letter and say this D is a little longer, and this is can add the linguistic annotation and so on and so on.
If you are interested in typography, it's good. But you have to choose. You need a concept. Without a concept, every edition, a digital and then a printed one, are useless. You need a concept. That's
you need to
plan. We know how to make concepts because it's our job. So actually, we learned it, and TI is a very good tool
like you have like money for a research assistant and your own time for a year. And you need to calculate, okay, I have now 2,000 hours of work. I can do such and such annotation in 1 year, both of us together. Okay, so we can do this type of annotation, which we really need on so and so many objects. And if you do not do and plan this in advance, you will end up with maybe something very fine-grained on only 5% of the data you plan to, or something else. So this is really, really important. And what you didn't show, Thomas, is that actually you can create interfaces. If you have some money for an engineer, or you know how to do it yourself, so you don't need to type all these.
No, there's a TI publisher. There are very nice tools out there. And actually, the first time I heard about Daniel was on the TI list, where he and Chaim Lapin asked a question about digital mission. So there's also very important is accepted guidelines that the TI list is a forum for humanists who are working digital. And it's really I learn a lot from questions from my Asian colleagues and other colleagues, it gave me very good ideas on what I also could do with the material I'm working with. So it's really a very open-minded group and very helpful and very supportive. So just
Thomas, we have still two more questions from Aminabu Kale. I'm sorry for mispronouncing possibly the name. Sorry. And then
thank you very
much.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much, Thomas, for your approach. We really need this approach in Arabic studies. We are working with the method of Orientalists of 19th century.
Yeah.
We are very need you. My question is, I want to know more about poetic manuscripts in Hebrew. I want more about poetic manuscripts in Hebrew. How was function, more values? Yes.
Oh, you mean poetic inscriptions on tombstones?
Yes, manuscripts. Yes, manuscripts, poetic in Hebrew, of course.
Yeah, I can send you a link. There are really thousands in Hamburg, especially in the 17th and 18th century, and Michael Brocke worked on it, and Carsten Wilke, I don't know if you know him, he was able to identify one of the poets, and it's really wonderful poetry. It's almost, you can almost not translate it because it's very stylish, but it was just one of examples. Yesterday I read dozens of them, and it was difficult to choose one, and but we have it, and I will send you a link, so you have my address. Send me an email, and I show you some examples and maybe some articles. And it's really an interesting topic which is not known also in Hebrew literature history, because nobody takes notice of. There's only Luzzatto, and we have at the same time hundreds of unknown poems on these stones still existing. You can read it if you are in Hamburg. Just go there and read it. But,
Thank you very much.
Bye. But,
Alicia.
Thank you for the presentation. My question might be a little bit naive or simplistic, but I'll still ask it, since I think that it's this this TI might be useful for me. So if I understand correctly, if we have a huge body of texts, let's say archive, we can use those tools to make this archive searchable. We can use it to make it documents easier to be retrieved by others and to give it structure. But what about like this very say personal level, when we have, let's say, body of texts for our use, we don't intend to publish it online. Can we still use it as a research tool? And what it can give us as researchers, more than, for example, we can get from Catman and other tagging tools which can use to annotate texts. I still somehow like miss this information, what it can give us as a researchers working on texts, just a structure of our archive, or it can serve as a tool to see something else, something more that we are unable to see without this tool.
No, it's there are it really depends on your research questions and your project. I don't think that TI is good for all projects, and from time to time it's if there's I know Katma a little bit, you have different approaches. So what TI offers you is that you have the guidelines, and you can look at it before if it's good for your project, because it's described, and you have lots of we are now dealing with these letters of Martin Buber's, these 40,000 letters, and what we did is we made an evaluation of existing digital editions, and thought, okay, this we like, this we don't like, and then it's all TI, and based on this we developed our own schema, and you are not alone, so you can relate to other projects, and this is a huge advantage of TI, and then you can, nevertheless, you can go your own way, you can choose your own one, but it doesn't mean that it must be TI. There are lots of other, but it really depends. And what I like are the search options. If you learn a little bit more, you have this XPath and XQuery, very strong tools to analyze your data, and the structure yourself applied on your data. But for other projects, it's just also very good to just put plain text in a machine and see what machine learning does with this. So artificial intelligence. So it really depends. There is no rule and not only one way. That would also be very boring. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Now we have two more questions again. Sorry, Daniel, but I will give preference to Federica first, because you asked already twice. So Federica Schmidt and then Daniel Stocker.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas, for this very interesting introduction to TEI. So first, I have a question regarding, well, if you have a project in mind, could you ask people from TEI to consult with you?
Even better.
Even better?
And you can ask the EAJS Digital Forum consultant, and you can send an email to the Digital Forum, and then you will be, you can, in most cases, I'm the first contact. We can talk about your idea, and we introduce this consulting hour, and then we have a huge network. So from if your project needs, for instance, HDR, then I will forward you to Daniel. If you are interested in geographical topics, I will forward you to Marcin and Alexei. So And in another project I helped, I know nobody knows it. I forwarded them to colleagues from a huge DH department, and it was a success. We are matchmaker actually as Digital Forum, and so and I think there's really a need in our very small discipline of Jewish studies, because my impression is that in the studies at the universities, DH isn't a topic. And if it's not in a modularized study system, it will never arrive. So we offered this consulting hour, but you can also always write a question to the TI list. I have this in this project. If you read the TI list, there are always questions like this, and it's always very helpful. I have an inventory of names. How should I address this huge amount of material? And that is currently a recent discussion on the TI list. So it has an archive. You can really go very far back, and you will find something. So there is really a huge community. But nevertheless, the EAJS Digital Forum has also its own consulting. So you. Yeah.
Okay, that's very good to know.
Yeah.
Another question, if I may, so somewhat more utopian, I would say, is there also an effort made by the TI consortium to go the way of automatization of annotation? Because since, for example, if you have letters and they follow a certain structure, that it would already tell you, okay, here you need the tag for and the attribute for date, and there, this is the closer, this is the opener. I mean, once you is there a possibility to train a model and then just let it do its job and afterwards do the re-editing? That's possible. That's Daniel and I are talking about it, and I think we will try it with our Buber correspondence, because we have 24 years and blah blah blah, so we have time for it. But TI doesn't offer stuff like this, because TI is a consortium which is really concentrates on writing and keeping alive these guidelines. It's a lot of technical, there are style sheets behind, so we have a technical council, we have a daily business council, though, and we have conferences. So TI is really about text encoding, not about tools, but there are out there lots of tools which do things like you just mentioned. Let's HTR our manuscript, and the output should be TI. That's possible, though. That's a workflow where TI is one of the results. That's possible, and lots of people are working like this. And there are also initiatives within the TI to make TI easier, like TI Publisher. If you have no budget at all, a small project, have a look at TI Publisher, which has a very small tagging set and which works for most needs most people have. So it's really very basic and very good and very easy. And there are more projects like this out there. Okay, thank you very much.
Daniel?
I just wanted to go back to Alicia's comment that I would not put Cadma and TI as comparanda.
Yeah.
They are two completely different things. Cadma is a tool, and TI is a way how to structure your data.
Yeah.
Actually, you can take Cadma and export your data as TI. So that it is like the question, am I allowed to drive a car when wearing a skirt? Yes, you can do both. You can drive the car in trousers, or you can drive the car in a skirt, and you can also go by foot in trousers or in skirts. So you can use TI when working with Cadma, or you can do a different output. and you can work with TI in something completely different or not. So the most important thing in the TI is really the interoperability.
Yeah.
That others can reuse your data, and that once all of these digital projects die, because we die. And once we are dead, nobody will care for our projects unless we have children who don't want to go their own way. So somebody else needs to be able to understand what we produced. And if you ever worked on the archive of your grandfather or something like that, it's a nightmare to sort out the letters. So if you do it in TI, others can understand.
And one thing I forgot to mention, because and otherwise I'm always doing it. TI is, we have currently the flavor TI P5, and P in TI P5 stands for proposal number 5. TI is a proposal. It's not a strict standard you have to keep to. It's a proposal. It offers possibilities, and this is a very good understanding what TI is and what it's not. It's very often presented not by the TI, but as a very strict corset, which forces you to do things in a one and only way. That's not the TI. That's a very bad impression of the TI, but that's not the TI is P, proposal, and yeah, keep that in mind. So yeah, sometimes I'm looking.
Thank you, Thomas, for this explanation. I think there is much more to explain about this two aspects that you were talking and Daniel was talking. Daniel was stressing more the standardization aspect and how much it enforces effectiveness of what is put into the TI. You are stressing more freedom of people too, but as far free you go with this, the less standardized it becomes. So the less it goes with the same tools as all others. So we are torn in between, obviously. So in effect, even though we are free to choose our own ways to go, if we do it, we end in rubbish with apparently TEI text that is not comparable with others, that doesn't go with the same search tools, that requires individual to search for each of those. But we have no time to go further with this on this forum, which we close right now. Fortunately, Daniel offers us WonderMe platform where we are able to have our virtual cup of coffee together and to discuss and continue conversation. WonderMe doesn't go with all web browsers, but if it doesn't, just copy the link and go with others. I've just
copy the link before you leave this Zoom.
The chat, that's right. You need to copy it from the chat now.
It's also in the email. It's also in the email, the link. I put it into the email this time.
So I hope to see most of you on the coffee break in WonderMe. Thank you again, Thomas. Thanks for amazing presentation and all the speakers and all the questions that made it so much more useful. Thanks a lot. Hope to see you very soon. Slava Ukraini.